Hello, and welcome to episode 16 of the Red Mist Podcast. On this week's episode, Nate and I sit down with two special guests, Alec Vidal and Matteo Giuliano, who are the CEO and race director of the newly established Touring Kart Championship. TKC is, in simple terms, a traveling rental kart series, but they are here to provide a much more competitive rental league series where they welcome anyone to compete with the best of the best from established rental leagues from just about anywhere, as you'll find out. Nate first met Matteo on Gran Turismo, as they discussed in the podcast, and I actually got to meet up with Alec earlier this year at endurance karting 6 hours of New England at Club Motorsports up in Tamworth, New Hampshire. So on this episode, we talk about what Touring Kart Championship is, who are Alec Vidal and Matteo Giuliano, and we hear some potential hot takes on what NASCAR needs to do as a business, because clearly NASCAR listens to the Red Mist podcast. Anyways, it was great to talk with Alec and Matteo. Thank you guys for coming on the podcast, and for all the listeners out there, enjoy the episode.
We have two very special guests tonight. We have Alec Vidal, CEO of the Touring Kart Championship, and race director of the Touring Kart Championship, Matteo Giuliano. Alec, Matteo, welcome.
Hey, thank you so much for having us on your podcast, Nathan.
Yes, and I feel it's been way overdue. Just because, I kind of saw like the prologue of this whole racing series come about beforehand, and I just love how it's really starting to bring maybe drivers that haven't figured out their racing career yet, or haven't had that real jump start in their racing career. Whether it's and now at this point it's karts in real life, and then also esports on iRacing, which has grown pretty rapidly too, and I've seen it too. There's even pros that are joining it in real life.
Yeah, it's been a really awesome journey so far. My name's Matteo, by the way. It's my first time on a podcast in a really long time. It's good to be here. But yeah, so we started this a couple years ago as a way to have a better racing league in the Northeast. Alec and I actually met at New Jersey Motorsports Park doing a rental league. And my first interaction with this guy was he was in a number 5 kart. I'd never seen him before in my life. He came into my peripheral vision. I'm like, yo, this guy's sending it. And then, unfortunately, the kart he had either had no brakes or he didn't know how to use the brakes.
It was lap one. It was lap one of a race in the middle of November. The tires were frigid, and I just slid right off the track.
What a way to meet each other. I'll tell you, it's funny you mentioned that, because I didn't meet Matteo in person. I first met him on Gran Turismo 5. I created a league, and he was one of the drivers that just happened to be partaking in it. And after the pandemic, it was just I personally was kind of having my own reset, if you will, to my life. What does Nathan Lavender want? What do I really want to aim towards, and what kind of personal goals do I want to accomplish? And one of them was to bring back my league, and then it in hand brought Matteo back, and he was someone I've always wanted to meet in person, just because and this is how this I feel the snowball effect really happened. I meet Matteo because he mentions that there's a 2-hour race, and I'm all in on endurance racing just because Christian, Sean, and I have had so much success at what was then F1 Boston. Christian, you want to call it F1 Boston? Or are we going to call it X1 Boston? Or
So, so by legal terms, from when it was last open, it was X1 Boston, but when we started there, it was called F1 Boston. So just by habit, we always defer to F1 Boston just because it's been like that forever until they had to legally change it over. But yeah.
right. So we, I started go karting when I was 15, and then after a few seasons there, I've Christian started racing, and I got to meet him, Justin Rusco, who did plenty of leagues with us as well. Definitely a strong ally on the Red Mist podcast here. But that's, we would do the endurance races, and Chris. I've noticed that Christian and Justin were just always winning these races. And there was one time, maybe I'm going maybe too far back, but just kind of building the prologue to before Matteo and I tackled the 2-hour race in New Jersey. They were winning, like, that's all I knew. Christian and Justin would win these 90-minute endurance races with the rental carts. And it took me a while to win one. And then finally, I got to really meet Christian. There was one endurance race where I had the day before I had my wisdom teeth taken out. And so I still went to the race just to watch because I just wanted to see what would happen. And Christian's like looking at me like, well, are you racing today? Like so like where's your stuff? Kind of had that look to him. And I was like, no, I had my wisdom teeth taken out, so but I still want to, to at least watch. And I got to be the grand marshal for the day. I got to wave the green flag, the checker flag, and everything, and it just really increased my drive to win. Because doing it's one thing, but then your next goal is to win, no matter what you get into. And so, and then we would partner up more so the adult league endurance races, just because Christian's dad, Sean, he would do those races, and really more or less he took me under his wing, and we were just doing really well. We even won Sean and I won a 3-hour race together one time, and that was pretty special. But
the thing about like rental car endurance racing, I just feel like is you're not only have to work with the equipment you have, but it's big, it's kind of really the most equal endurance racing you can really get. And it's just like any real endurance race or any real Grand Prix race. If you make one mistake, that will really cost you in the long run. And most endurance races don't really have any cautions to catch the field up, so it really makes it so that it's really a sprint all the way from the beginning to the end. And I do got to say, just from what I've heard you guys do up in, K1 Speed and F1 Boston and everything, before I met you, I just knew that when you were coming to New Jersey, you definitely had some experience under your belt.
Yeah, and I just, racing with Matteo, I knew he would be pretty quick. He at least knew, New Jersey motorsport parks, layout, tracks. It was pretty new to me, so I definitely had to learn pretty quickly on what the layout was. And and Matteo, it turned out to be okay, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. And it's funny looking back on that day now, how ironic it really is. I'll never really forget that day because it was around June in 2020. And if you look back at June 2020 now, that's like, holy crap, that's like a millennia ago, right? When we got right into that month, I remember the first few businesses were starting to open, and then New Jersey Motorsports Park had an announcement on Racer.com, and I always would follow the Robin Miller articles on there, and then that popped up, and it's a New Jersey Motorsports Park that reopened to the public on June 2nd, and me not having been there in years, 4 years at least, from that point, I was like, you know what, like, I was already doing tons of iRacing, so like you mentioned earlier, as soon as the pandemic started, I was right back on my simulator, and honestly, it seemed like 70% of the entire world was on their simulator, and it was crazy. I was just getting into sessions. I went to an IMSA session. And Alex Tagliani was just right in front of me, so I'm just duking it out with him. So I was doing a ton of sim racing and really getting back into it. So when I saw NJMP was open, I was like, all right, I really want to experience some sports and athletics competition with other people. It's the one thing I missed the most after the pandemic begun. And then I don't know what happened. I found out there was an endurance race on Monday. So after practice on Saturday, I was just like, oh my God, I missed driving Avenger. The Avenger layout, as you guys may have seen the endurance karting race on Instagram a little bit, it's, pretty straight up, but you really got to not only focus on your karting fundamentals, but the racing can be so nose to tail, right through the first kink and the left-hander and the S section and going up the hill. Such great battles. And going into that day, we actually were racing against Alec knows these guys very well, Henry Kelleher and Ben. I think his last name is Dometazine, and those two are very, very quick. I actually would race against them all the time in the leagues, and they were our main competition. We also actually had Dom and Nick Callan, who are also a father and son duo. I used to race a lot, and that day, I just remember, I started that race, and me and Henry, I think, had about 15 lead changes before 20 minutes into the race. And what do you remember from the outside perspective of that? Because it's been a while.
Of the 2-hour race we did?
Yeah.
Well, I just I'll tell you, it was at first it was quite the uphill battle because I knew we had a fast kart. At least what I could feel in the practice and qualifying, and then we had that transponder issue. They made us pit, and you just had this incredible, just laser focused drive. Okay, I have to just be perfect. And I had that same mentality, and it was almost in sync. We just kept our head down, and we spent, this is no joke, we spent, I would say, an hour and 40 minutes catching up, and then all of a sudden with 20 minutes to go, I'm finishing the stint. I believe it's correct me if I'm wrong. I think it might have been the last half hour.
Yeah, you did the last half hour. And it was every time I was on track, I'd be battling Henry, and then every time you were on track, you'd be battling Ben.
Yeah, and I was able to overtake Ben, and we just set sail after that. We're just even, increasing the distance.
Yeah, and then remember, with
second.
a few minutes to go, actually, I do remember they caught up. Remember their chain broke? Do you remember that?
Yes, that was just really unfortunate.
And it's crazy because
it's endurance racing.
It is. That's just you can have it. Obviously Toyota experienced at Le Mans all these years.
Christian was there.
That's
one of the most memorable moments of any racing event that I've ever gone to. So it's hard to top that right now for me.
Yeah, right. The first Le Mans you go to is that. And my first Indy 500 is Dan Wilton winning it. So and speaking of Indy 500, you two went to a pretty good Indy 500 yourselves, along with yours truly.
Oh my God, yeah, and that's funny as we're talking about all these memories. That's another fantastic weekend I remember. Well, one thing I want to bring up from that, Prescott Campbell, who was a friend of mine that I met on iRacing, I actually met him in person at NJMP the year before at the USF 2000 race, and he went from 13th to 3rd in the rain. And I remember I was cheering him on. He saw me, he came, he's like, "Dude, do you see that, bro?" I'm like, "Dude, you made that look easy," And months later, I remember we watched Speed Race. We went to the track on Friday night, IRP, after we went to Carb Day for the first time.
Yeah, Lucas Oil Raceway. Yep.
Mm-hmm. It's right after yours truly snuck my friend Alec here into the pits for the first time.
Not that I would know.
Alec, you remember that, Alec? When I was like, "Yo, dude, let's go check out pit lane during Carb Day."
Oh my God, yeah. And everybody had their special pit pass on, and we were just wearing our regular tickets as if they were the pit passes, and nobody questioned us.
Yeah, and it's funny because
especially James Hinchcliffe.
Yeah,
it's funny. I knew. By the way, I knew coming on this podcast today, I knew some gems are going to come out. But actually, that skill of being able to do that came from me being a young arrogant teenager wanting to get away from my sister at Daytona, right? I remember my sister like just didn't want to be there. I was like, oh, dude, I got to be around the people. Like, I got to be around the racing, right? So I remember I snuck in the pit road, and then I wound up being behind driver intros for the Xfinity race back in 2014. And ever since, I remember just that feeling, just like being right before the race and just being in the action. And then I just don't know what it was, and that's just kind of my entire life. If there was any action anywhere, especially if it was on a weekend, I had to be there. Like, if I wasn't there, something was wrong. And it's just, I guess it's just my fiery Aries attitude that I've had since I was a kid, right?
Right, and it kind of goes hand in hand with your racecraft almost. You're probably one of the more transparent drivers I think I've ever met. In iRacing, Gran Turismo, we definitely have a lot of moments on Gran Turismo where we're just especially there's definitely sometimes where steam was coming out of my ears, and there's sometimes where it's just like, man, we had some good battles. So no, and I love that. It's funny, and like sometimes in racing, like I take calculated risks. Sometimes it's just like I think about it, like, and it's like, no, just do it. Like,
well, yeah, I've actually, it's funny because, and every one of you has experienced it, and then most recently Christian Abbott. It's no matter what I'm dealing with, I make getting by me a challenge, and not just an arrogant challenge, a challenge that will, even if you do pass me, you're gonna be like, damn, that was fucking annoying. Excuse my language, but I was always inspired by Jacques Villeneuve as a kid, because as a kid I always was into GT racing and endurance racing, and whenever I would be with all my homies in my NR 2003 team speaks, I always would kind of like, I don't know, whenever I would race at the road courses, I really very quickly became that threat, because at the ovals, them guys that were racing the Papyrus game when I was younger were just so fast, and I was just having such a tough time keeping up. And whenever we would go to like Montreal,
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Road America, like I just had this magic that would just come, and it was my real chance to like show like the big drivers then, and even some of those big drivers then are big, iRacing names now, like Zach Novak, even Ray Alfala, and and then also Alan Bowes, all them guys. Like, I don't know what they're doing now, but they used to race on NR 2003 before everything, and and I'd be able to even be in the same realm as those guys. It always was like, what? Even if I'm not the fastest right now, even if I'm not, the hottest,
you're on the grid
here, I'm gonna be a challenge, and I've always just put that mentality. And seeing the way Jacques Villeneuve handled all the hate he got in 2012, obviously the NASCAR community he left a little bit of a stain on, but I don't know. I've always loved that.
Yeah. No, I hear you there. And Alec, I'm gonna kind of turn over to you. Racing hasn't always been in your blood, but why Touring Car Championship? I mean, was it just an idea from the pandemic, or was it just an evil plot to destroy the world from the very beginning?
Oh yeah, I mean, racing has always been in my blood. Not particularly motor racing, but track, rowing. Like my whole life has just been about racing. So, during the pandemic, I actually was looking for a job, and I decided to work at the local go-kart track, the infamous Speed Raceway. And, just working there and seeing that, like, this is how a supposed go-kart track operates, I was not, like, super thrilled, especially when they wouldn't let me do any races. So, you know what I did? I went down to NJMP, and I did one of the endurance races, and that's where I met Mateo.
Yeah.
And
By the
you
way,
know,
great person to meet, huh?
oh yeah, just like random. I didn't even meet him the first time, because there was 2 endurance races 2 weekends in a row. I went the first time with my friend, and I went the second time with Nick Callan, and that's when I met Mateo the second time.
And I remember that one. I actually had to organize that because at the end of the year, like Kevin emailed me, he's like, "Hey, we have one more date." He used to be the karting director there, and he emailed me. He's like, "Hey, I need some people just for the end of this." And I was like, "Okay." So I remember I wound up hitting up like a bunch of. I said, "Hey, we have one more. You guys want to do one more?" And well, I'm not.
Yeah, and you asked it in the Discord. That's how I found out, and that's how we like organized everything. And you know, shortly after that, you know, I kind of realized that, you know, we can do our own races. We don't have to wait for, you know, NJMP to reopen again. So I set up a race between, you know, a couple people, Dom, Nick, Mateo, and our good friend Tangy. And, you know, we went and we raced, and that's kind of where the whole conception of Touring Car Championship really began. Because, you know, of course, being a racing driver and working at an electric indoor go-kart track, you know, you think that you know that everything that can help the track just be better. And when they don't respond to any of the things that you say, which a lot of racers experience, you know, your just natural inclination is to be like, I want to own my own track.
Right.
And so we went into, you know, that first event, you know, with that kind of mindset. And we realized after speaking with Ethan Oring's dad, who's a financial advisor, we realized that, you know, if we want to get there, we have to start small. And we had just put together this, you know, small little event, you know, just 5 drivers. And, you know, it occurred to us like, oh, well, you know, this race was better than any of the league races that have ever happened at, you know, this track. So why don't we just create our own races and go to different tracks so that we can actually have like a solid league that gives people a real racing experience and, you know, travels to different tracks so people get to experience different things. And, you know, that's how Touring Car Championship was born.
That was a really big transitional period in my life too, because I remember like going into that winter. You know, I was fully immersed into the sport for the first time since I was 15, and I was 21 then. You know, so it was really like, you know, this is my chance to, you know, kind of come back into the sport for real, you know, and try to you know, do something, you know. And right from the get-go, we kind of had an idea of what we wanted. You know, I had been doing leagues at different tracks for years and years and years, so I really tried my best to pass my experience that I had from that on to Alec, you know, just to tell him like what a really good championship is versus what I think, you know, a mediocre championship is. And I remember we had one special day where we ordered these 2 red polos just to like look professional. Because
were they from Tiger Woods?
They could have been. They easily could have been. I remember they were red actually too. They were very.
You mean the jackets?
Yeah, the jacket.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
The start of our merch journey.
Yeah, I know. And then we got them because we had set up meetings with many different tracks in New York and Connecticut. We set up a meeting with Autobahn. We set up a meeting with Tim Hannon from OVRP. We just set up all these meetings, I remember. And it was all we were going to do at each meeting was like, hey, like we want to rent your track, but we're just a little different than, you know, just a regular, you know, group.
Regular like party or something, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like it was interesting.
Like a sanctioned championship.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and because one thing that already existed before us was something called the American Kart Championship, and they do still exist. And Audubon treats that series basically, you know, like the championships. They close the track to the public, and then it becomes a regional event rather than just a league race. So it's like that, you know, it's like that other level to where, you know, when you're at this racetrack this day, like, okay, like this is big, you know, this is the regional, you know, if I win here, I can move on to, you know, bigger things with my driving, you know, and that's kind of our mindset with the way we were doing all this. So we went to Tim Hannon, you know, I remember he showed us around. That was my first time at OBRP ever. So that was just, it was funny because it was literally in the snow, and he literally pulled in after doing laps in the ice, and he had some kind of snow tires on, and he was just out there drifting in the ice. So that was my introduction to Tim Hannon. Great guy. You know, we had I remember just learning so much from him, and him and I clicked just from, you know, he's a musician too, and he's a musician that, you know, owns a racetrack. So, you know, I remember just me and Alec just remember being there and seeing him having his dog, and, you know, just kind of doing his own thing and running his own events there. And, you know, and then Alec and I kind of looked at that as like, damn, like people like us really, you know, it wouldn't hurt to try to go for a goal like that. Because at the end of the day, we're all, you know, we all want to live in a place where, you know, we can do things that we enjoy, you know, and obviously when you have the great privilege of, you know, working or living on a racetrack, whether you know, you got it or, you know, you really work for it, it's really special opportunity, one, and two, it really lets you connect with the landscape and, you know, the people that come there. And, you know, people aren't just coming, you know, to, you know, your business, people are coming to your home, you know, so it kind of really showed us part of grassroots racing that, you know, I remember as a kid from going to New Egypt Speedway, but also just realizing like this grassroots energy in racing like can never die, you know. So, you know, as we traveled to the different tracks that day, I remember we were just driving through the cold New York mountains, you know, just going as many places we can. And, you know, to be quite frankly honest, most of the indoor electric places didn't wind up working out, except for one special place that
Grand Prix New York.
Well, yes.
Which
actually go on to be the racetrack where we had our first event at.
Right.
Yes.
Which,
yes, I remember Grand Prix New York. Let's take a second to appreciate Grand Prix New York. Okay, so that place, I believe it was our first. Was it our first stop or our second stop? I believe it was our first stop.
Yeah, it was our first stop because that's when we were talking with Marco about
naming. Yeah, because I remember that. Marco Oldhaffer, he's a big important name in karting in the Northeast. As you know, he had the F Series for many years, and I don't know if you guys remember, he actually used to go to Expo in Boston back in the day. Do you have any recollection of that, Christian?
Yeah, we always saw the event there. I never participated in any of it because it was scheduling for me just didn't align. But it was also we would go and I remember going there and watching it one day before I was really involved in some of my racing, and it was cool to see everyone there and whatnot. But I also just saw, like, just in my head, like, wow, man, there's just 30 carts, and I don't really know if I want to wreck my cart too, just because if you're in the middle of the pack, it's kind of a bump fest, and unless you were out front or, you know, in the back, like, you weren't really going to have, you know, too much of a clean race. But that's also karting. Like, everyone's on top of one another too, so.
Well, yeah, and, you know, that's really just the nature of it. And just the F Series in itself, the F Series has a reputation for being a very tough championship. And one thing I will say about, you know, just me knowing him and knowing what he's about, he definitely has a great German European energy he tries to bring to, you know, the sport. You know, he really has held so many races at Englishtown throughout the years, you know, to really push the drivers and, you know, make them really, really good. One driver that's actually come through the F Series is Fantino Ferrucci. Another driver that's come through the F Series as of recently is Andre Lafond, and even Chloe Chambers, she's come through the F Series as well. You know, it's Marco Oldhaffer has been in karting for a long time, and when Alec and I came into karting, I remember I met him just because I just remember seeing him holding a mic. I'm like, yo, dude, do you need help? Like, so you don't have to be holding the mic, walking around trying to help everybody. He's like, yeah, sure, whatever. And then he actually found out that I could announce, so I wound up becoming the announcer of the F Series, and then after I became the announcer, I just was naturally in the booth, and I kind of had that bird's eye view of NJMP that was needed to help the races run smoothly and make sure everything was called that needed to be called. So I took, so I just became very involved with them, and I was becoming involved with them as I was becoming involved with TKC. So it was just, me and Alec were very appreciative in the beginning because we originally were going to call, this is actually a fun fact for anybody listening that, has raced in TKC or knows us or whatever. It originally wasn't going to be called the Touring Kart Championship. And Alec, what was our original name?
So our original name was going to be the Tri-State Championship or the Tri-State Karting Championship. And Marco actually convinced us to change the name because of the sprint, the shifter series that he used to run with.
Yeah, the Mike Rivera
basically,
Northeast shifter series. Yeah.
He basically said that, if you have a location in your name, you're limiting yourself to that location. So, if we were the Tri-State Championship, it would make no sense to go anywhere else besides those three states, like Jersey, New York, and Pennsylvania. But so, he convinced us to change it. We ended up changing it actually based off of, this is a funny story, but I was driving down the road and I saw a pest truck, like a pesticide truck, and on the back it said GTO, which is also a name of an old Pontiac, which stands for like Grand Touring something. And as soon as I saw it, I'm like, boom, Touring Kart Championship.
So
simple,
Pontiac
clean.
GTO helped it, or at least kind of started that name change. Which, I mean, it sounds like to me it's almost like a DTM, if you will, like. Or just,
that was
like
more
that.
inspiration, like sort of like Grand Touring racing, like that was all inspiration for the name.
But I'll tell you, I mean, the name just really stuck. I mean, there's no other real racing series that's like this, and I for one am more impressed of the international attention that Touring Kart Championship has. There's a few international drivers in this championship that I think really kind of add some weight to this championship.
I mean, it definitely does. Having we actually at the beginning, we knew that in order to have our first race, because when we went to GPNY that day, we talked to a man named Alex, who, shout out to my dude Alex. He's awesome dude. He actually does racing in Lemons. He does a lot of the 24-hour Lemons races, and he's done a few runs in AER. He's a great fun guy to get to know. He actually is a Gran Turismo pioneer warrior himself. And when I first met him, we were talking about Gran Turismo 3. So when you were going to a racetrack, and then the manager was able to talk to you about that, like that's how we were able to really connect right off the rip. And then he saw our vision. He really saw what we were trying to do, and he saw we were trying to do something that would benefit the drivers that are developing into young men as well as racing drivers. So he took us for what it was, because he had a league himself, and then he took us. He was a really important part of us getting started, because he was one of the first people that really took us the way we wanted to be taken. And like, listen, we're a regional championship. When we come here, it's meant to be the event that's meant to propel some of your league drivers into the realm of more regional competition. And when you bring up international, when we had our first races, we had to, this is just a matter of the fact, no matter what you're doing in life, any business, if you're going to have an event somewhere, you have to pay to use that property, and you have to make sure whatever you get back from using that property is at least enough, to cover, what that property was used for. And in order to have 2 hours at a track, we had to make sure, we have enough people that are able to, make that time viable. Because when I used to go to Speed Raceway as a kid, which was the first leagues I used to run, they would have 3 different time slots, and those time slots would run an hour each. But in that hour, you would have to be able to fit a qualifying, and 2 races. That was just the basic, format that you needed to try to fit, because, and you guys probably know this from just, getting started in your local leagues. Once the league happens, it's just a different energy around, like, the energy of the entire business that day changes. It's like, okay, this is no longer open to the public. This is a sanctioned, at K1, it is just a much more taken seriously event than, just, people paying for sessions and going out there. So with that being said, everything has to run a certain way. You got to have the right track workers there. You got to be looking for penalties, in order to make the racing proper. So there's a lot that goes into it. And then, once Alex understood what we were doing, we booked our first race. It was on March 21st, which was a day before my birthday in 2021. And leading up to this date, we were starting to begin to set up other races. But at the international thing, in order to get international, or just in order to get anybody, like, they even come to the race, we actually had to do something called Guerrilla Marketing. I don't know if you've ever heard of the term, but the term guerrilla usually means, like, hands-on, like, you got to really do it yourself. Like Gorilla Tape, it's like, it's not the perfect fix, but it's just a fix for the moment. So we would hit people up and say, hello, we're a racing championship. We see that you race at this track. Would you like to be a part of this race? This is what you get for this. And, if you want to come out, feel free to come out. And thankfully, a lot of names that, we've seen pop up in many races and, have already made a name for themselves through our events, like Alex Anderson, Brandon Devine, Jake Innes, David De Silva. These are younger guys, or more around like 16, 17 years old, but they were league racers at GPNY, and when they go to GPNY, like, that's their racing series. When they get up in the morning like that, they want to win that championship. So, and I gotta say, Danny has helped made GPNY's leagues very, very, very prominent, and a very important thing to have in that part of New York in terms of the racing community. And, the fact that we were able to get some of their top league guys was a huge part of us even being able to get started at all, because, in order for our competition to have the prominence that we needed to become something, we needed, any driver that was coming from outside of the area to have to not only, race the other competition, but to have to race the best people that are at that track, because we wanted to tell the competition there, like, listen, you looking for, something better, you looking for something more competitive, we're going to bring people, and this is what it's going to be.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, and Dan Stevens, he's a great guy. He knows how to run a race, and he's very quick too. I came to learn that he was actually one of the quicker drivers at GPNY. And I'll tell you, when he was, I think he's still race director now. So, but or at least at GPNY, a manager of sorts. He saw my best drive at the Curry Grand Prix. It was almost Sebastian Vettel-esque. I'm not trying to compare myself, but it was from 20th to 2nd. I'm just gonna conclude at that. And he was one of the first people to come up to me and be like, "Wow, that was really an incredible drive." And You know, I just racing with Dan Stevens. He's very qualified to really want good racing. And he's really quick too. So
yeah, and he was
his words hold weight.
Yeah, you're right, and he was another huge part of how we were able to get our races going. Because I got to tell you, just in terms of, and for anybody listening, that's more on the oval side of things. If you do local stuff over there, all the people that it takes, the flaggers, the mechanics, the marshals, like everybody, that is involved with running a racetrack. It is so vital to keep the community alive and to be able to have these events. And, I just want to give a big shout out to anybody that is a worker at a racetrack and also loves what they do. It's one thing to be a worker somewhere, but to really, put your life into it, to not only make a living for yourself, but to also provide a community, support for what they're doing. It's just hugely, hugely incredible. And Grand Prix New York, everybody that has ever worked there always would help us with penalties, like right from the get-go, and was such a huge part for letting people know, like, this is for real, and this is the real first step on the ladder for, racing, because what I want to, kind of prevail as and show people as our mission, we're trying to become, a place where people can let out their inner feeling, as Lewis Hamilton would say, and, be able to find the passion that they love racing with, but also having a place where they can actually take the first step on a ladder in a sport that, is very difficult to move up the ladder, kind of like a Little League World Series of karting, because if you watch the Little League World Series, a lot of these names, like even 7 years ago, like Cody Bellinger, like I know to go to baseball out of nowhere, but like Cody Bellinger, like David Ortiz, like Shane Victor, like I can name, like I think almost every baseball player that has been talked about being in the Hall of Fame, has gone through the Little League World Series, or even Formula One. Every Formula One driver that is on that grid has gone through the FIA World Karting Championship. You know what I mean? Like Pierre, right. Like even, and it's funny to even like, and just to show you, like for anybody listening, like this is important. Just to show you how interconnected the sport of racing really is too. Look at somebody like Tanguy, who we used to race with at the beginning, and he was always a threat at some of our first races. He used to race in France at the indoor tracks, and he actually got discovered at an indoor track. So it just shows you, what, like, these indoor tracks are not just like a place to go have fun. It is, but like it's a place to really prove what you're made of. It's really the first place you can say, I can drive the heck out of this thing better than anybody else. And in Europe, it's because of how prevalent that business structure is, there's so many karting tracks all over the place, especially in France and the United Kingdom. And when Tanguy got discovered, he was telling me these stories. He would race against drivers like Pierre Gasly, rest in peace, Antoine Hubert,
Yep.
Lando Norris. There's so many and this is just through the French championships. You know what I mean? So it just shows you like that ladder through karting is still there. But for anybody even that's remotely, has a couple dollars, it's the real way to get started is through rental karting. That's the real first step. And having and just like Little League, Little League is usually funded by local townships and stuff, because it's like part of the community, and there's like the athletic association that's with the schools.
Right. They just build that funding together, and just exactly. They find the best players they can that are within that radius.
Then there's scholarships for college and things like that, and then there are things like that exist in motorsports, but not only are they very expensive, but they're very hard to obtain, and because there aren't any athletic scholarships through the NCAA with auto racing. So that's like hundreds of millions of dollars that simply not only you don't have access to, but it's also it's the most expensive sport there is. So having try to grow the talent you need through whatever racing that you do or have grown to do in your life, to be able to get to that next level is one thing. But if you literally do not have the financial backing, it's in today's world, especially, over the last 8 years, the way the financial game has kind of changed for families, it just, it can be nearly impossible. Like, you could have the skill, you can have the passion, you can have the willpower, you can have the focus, you can have it all, but then you could just be lacking that financial backing. And just because of that, you kind of can't compete with other people that do have that, and I've seen so many great guys, that just had to put together what they had to put together, and, you can get out there. And, I will say though, like, it is just my personal opinion. Like, it is a little harder now to put together a package in like something like USPKS or SCUSA, where you could put together a package for like under $3,500 and still compete at the front. Now, don't get me wrong. I see some like people that I personally know, even down at Florida, like Orlando Kart Center. Like, I see people put together some stuff, especially in like the 100cc class, and it's not as involved, so it's a little easier than like X30, to run at the front. But like, for example, like Stephen Malazzi, he's a good friend of ours. He actually just raced in the Truck Series for the first time. We just met him. He was telling me how he used to race against, Nicholas Latifi, and Nicholas Latifi, and also Nicholas Latifi's brother. I forget what his name is. But they would come to the track with like a giant trailer, like catering. Imagine going to a karting track and have catering for your kid. That's, dude, like, that's like, oh my God. It's like, oh, here's your perfectly set protein lunch just for you, right? That's like right there. And then meanwhile, Stephen Malazzi is in this like blank cart, like under like a blue tent, wearing just like a blank blue suit. You know what I mean? Like, there's a video of it on YouTube. It's insane. And, and then he's racing with the Latifis for podiums. And this is in 2006. And I'm passing on this story because that's what I love doing, just passing on stories I hear. Because it just proves, like, when the equipment is even, and when the equipment is at least, like, you are able to get out there and have something to work with, money doesn't matter. It never has, and it never will, when it comes down to pure skill and pure talent and pure racecraft in the moment. The most successful, names in auto racing, they, even if they had the financial backing, they would never have been able to accomplish what they've accomplished if they didn't have the skill to do that, and in a lot of other sports, because of the scholarship programs that exist, you can, improve yourself at the high school level or the college level and move up to the NFL and go from, Kensington in Philadelphia or somewhere in Detroit where it's very low income and hope and opportunity is very low, but you can still make a name for yourself. In auto racing, it's happening, but, you can always say it can always be better, and when we started this, that's kind of what we wanted to, go with. And, just a couple shout outs to Dave Campos, who's been a great part of our program. He started racing with us towards the beginning. He went to the Lucas Oil Racing School, finished 8th out of 30 drivers, man. That's like that.
That's some great feat.
That's great, and any driver that's like, represented us or raced for us, thank you so much. I try to let every driver know that whoever comes like to a league race or a esports event, which we'll get into, if you are there and if you come, this isn't just you being a part of it. You are now a part of this. You're now this is now your place to prove what you're made of. So it's going to be an interesting ride. I can't wait to see, because I got to say, even somebody like Juan Cosme, he's a friend of mine from North Jersey. He started racing with us when we were going to tracks like GP&Y, and even Lehigh Valley, He's now starting to get into doing some KA sessions in the next 30 session or two, which is fantastic. I've just seen so many of these guys grow so much, and I didn't expect guys like Roman, who is from Belarus, and Augusto, who's like these drivers. They live in the Philadelphia area. Like a lot of our drivers actually do ride. They're coming from the greater Philadelphia area, which I like. But they are rooted from somewhere else, you know. So the country they're actually representing on track is not just the United States. They're representing Brazil, or in Ramon's case, Belarus, and Ramon winning at GP&Y and winning at New Jersey Motorsports Park. Even as time goes on, like I want to remind people like of that, because there's going to be so many races. We're going to be doing so much more with social media as time goes on. But those wins that he has achieved in our championship, like I don't think maybe we realize like how big that is, but that's insane. Like you don't really Belarus is literally a country that was a Soviet country, and they are one of the countries that's trying to hold their independence. And there's a lot of crazy political stuff that goes on with that country, but for somebody to come from a place like that and come to the United States and win in a sport like this, it is special, and as over time and as hopefully more people become aware of what our program is, I want to remind people this is a place for anybody from anywhere. I think that we actually have a couple races coming up very soon. We're going our second Monza Grand Prix this weekend, the second one of the year. We're doing the same layout, and then we have.
And Matteo, Monza is the one at Foxwoods in Connecticut, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So anyone here from New England, if you want to go race and be a part of Touring Car Championship, one of your closest venues is Monza at Foxwoods. So, Matteo, what date is that at?
That is on Saturday morning. It is going to be registrations to be at 9:00. You just go to the Fox Tower. There's a big parking lot in there. You just drive to any level, and then you just go to the elevator, go to the karting level, and you will be at the right place.
And then if anyone from around here is looking for Touring Car Championship, where can they find you online, on social media, and where not?
So we are at touringcarchampionship.com, Touring Car Championship on Facebook, Instagram, and now Twitter. This is very recent. We are now on Twitter. We're going to kind of leave Twitter out of the occasion for now, but mainly on Instagram. If you want any updates on our esports championships, any updates. We also are on Discord. We have a growing Discord that is some exciting things coming up. So you feel free to join our Discord. The conversation extends beyond this podcast. This podcast isn't just, it's not like this is an enclosed thing. The conversation goes beyond, into our race events and into, us hanging out at the racetrack on weekends. So, yeah, touringcarchampionship.com, Touring Car Championship on Instagram. Yep.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I mean, being a racer in Touring Car Championship, these races are insane. They are insanely good. The competition, as Matteo mentioned, the competition is very tight. If you make a slip up, you're probably going to lose not just one position, but a plural amount of positions. So it's definitely, if you really feel you have the skill, lay it on them.
Or how about this? If you're at a racetrack anywhere to the west of Ohio and you actually want to race, come to the race. It's for anybody that actually wants to race. Like if you're paying for sessions at your track or let's say, especially if you're winning every race. If you're winning every race, that's your sign that you better be at our events because you're going to be using your time a lot more wisely, I promise.
Right. Elevate your game. I mean, heck, that's how Christian elevated my game. I was kind of growing up into liking NASCAR, and then I got to meet Christian and kind of opened my eyes to endurance racing and its purpose. And just shifted my thinking from, well, NASCAR's great, but IMSA is pretty sick. So I really like that series. And doing, and iRacing too, doing the 24 hours at Daytona, 12 hours Sebring, Watkins Glen 6 hours, Petit Le Mans, and all in between. Great races in IMSA, and even iRacing.
I mean, Nate, I think my background of just what I think of in creating your racing form, I've always been someone who has been fascinated by people who can adapt to different cars, driving styles, because I think that's a more well-rounded driver. But it also keeps you as yourself on your toes, and if you can easily adapt to stuff, then you're gonna be able to get to the front a lot quicker. And that's really all that rental karts is always been about, because every kart is even, right, quote unquote. But there's always so there's always slight differences. There's always one kart where the motor is just a dog, and then there's always this one kart where it's a rocket, but it's just got no turn in at all. So you got to learn how to drive that. But that's the gist too of like you're going into rentals, and you got these are 5-minute races, and you have to figure it out in the first minute. Otherwise, you're not going to make it at all.
Well, yeah, and even for anybody that's developing as a driver, in general, being able to adapt to, different equipment like this is a really good way of getting you ready for, what it's like to manhandle something like that, how your perception of weight transfer goes forward, torque, all of these things. And even what I'm continuing to learn, and what I'm going to be experiencing, what I've been experiencing over the last 2 years, what I'm working on this week is that transition from rental karting into competition racing, because that next level is really when the games begin, as they say, right? Because a lot of these drivers, just with the champ, and this is the beautiful thing, and this is just one thing I want to make clear, right? So with the championship itself, the championship is meant to not only be a ladder program, it's meant to really be, if this is this is where you race, this is where you race, like this is really just a open season for really any driver from any discipline or just any human being at all that likes racing, to be able to go for championships and have championships that you can have weight to, and then you can put your name, and your name is going to really become history at this point. It's not just I'm actually working on something kind of exciting. So there's a website online called it's a website that keeps all of these stats for racing. So it's a I forget exactly what it was called, but it's a really awesome website because you can literally find Racing Reference. That's what it is. RacingReference.info. It is a website that has been used for the last like it has results from races back to 1903 at the Milwaukee Mile, something crazy, right? So I am hoping that that I can get in touch with them and start putting down all of the stats that we've ever had from our 2 prologue races through our first summer series and our first winter series, and the summer series that we're going through right now. I want to take, we have all those stats and all the results, and I'd love to upload that there at some point because, a lot of the performance that a lot of these drivers have, accomplished is just, like I said, it's when we go to a place like On Track, the second you are not in the pack or you're not in line, you're getting freight trained, man. It is.
Oh yeah.
The competition is just and it is funny seeing what Monza becomes and their league races are awesome too. Don't get me wrong, but which are actually happening right now. I was thinking about going up tonight. So thank you guys for keeping me home tonight and keeping me off the road because this sport has me on the road more than any other job I've had in my life.
Well, I tell you, I really like that winter season of TKC. That was definitely a really good season.
Oh yeah, it was
Bit of a biased opinion, huh?
well, you can always say, it's it was a really good season from somebody that is drinking champagne out of a shoe in the middle of March. How did that taste, by the way?
The alcohol
little
I think
leathery?
killed the germs. Yeah,
Little
right.
leathery.
Like a steak well done 9 times.
Oh,
Oh my God, man! We're gonna have to make a drink and name it the Nathan Leather.
I like the
Oh man!
Man, you're really reaching for something there.
Oh yeah, we're getting the new dimensions here,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's been such a crazy journey. I'd be absolutely lying if I said it was smooth. I'd be lying.
When is there ever Plan A that works in racing?
Yeah.
I can't think of any.
Plan A is always to go to Plan B.
Or Plan F if you're Ferrari.
Oh! Yeah, right. Here's my theory with that. They got to get Gordon Ramsay as the team principal. That's just my.
I think Plankton's
thing.
going to be pulling out Plan Z at Spa. I'm not going to. I'm not going to.
Yeah.
Speaking of Spa, did you guys see the weather forecast for this weekend?
I did not check.
Ooh.
What's the weather looking like?
It's looking like rain on Saturday for qualifying, and it looks like there's a chance of showers on Sunday too. So I don't know. Everybody's making the memes of what it was like for last year. So hopefully we don't have a repeat of that. But maybe a little drizzle is would be nice, but hopefully the race just goes on.
Well,
instead of just a pace car and Nikita Mazepin having fastest lap, like please, that's not a real race. That's not a real race.
Listen, he didn't technically get the fastest lap because
you gotta be inside.
He wasn't in the top
10.
10.
Yep. So.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, thank you guys for everything that you do with Touring Car Championship. It certainly rejuvenated my racing career for one. Winning the winter season championship, and I can't imagine what it's doing for other drivers too. And also bringing that idea to drivers that are, on esports, maybe outside of reach right now, but could be within reach come a couple of months, maybe a few years, seasons, right? I look at the esports, and it's given even our very own Christian Abbott an opportunity to win some races, and also the driver like Grant Palmer, who's in is it USF 2000 he's racing?
Yeah, he raced that
was. Yeah.
So I mean,
and he raced with us at the 24 Hours of NOLA.
Right. So it's he opportunities for drivers.
Was he
all
on
across the
the
board.
TKC team there at NOLA?
Yeah.
Okay.
Christian,
sorry.
Did you get a podium?
I was no. I guess to fill the gap in here. I also went and drove there at that race too. So, I was running with the NHKA Red Mist team there. Back in March, so,
yeah. No, I remember you guys.
Yeah,
you guys were pretty competitive with us.
Yeah,
a little bit.
The Apex Kart team that was in second overall towards the end of the race. They were another team we were pitted with that had guys from NHKA as well. But they had a long story short, they had a chain fall off at right at the dead end of the race, which sucked. But it was proven to all of us after the race was over that we got some good competitors that are from the Northeast, and you guys with the platform TKC it is that kind of next step that you're looking for. I mean, if you're stuck doing a rental league, and it's just the one location you do, like TKC is exactly what you want to do. You want to go and try other rental leagues or rental karting places out and have a championship out of it. Like that is logically what I would always think would be the next step, because then after that, then you do get into these high performance karts or competition karts where you can go out and start competing in series like the F Series, go up to SCUSA and whatnot, and then make your jump into cars from there.
Yeah, definitely. You know, I'm very, very happy with, you know, what we've done so far, but I think the curve ahead, I think, is going to be really, really awesome. You know, I think the entire racing community is in an interesting place right now. You know, we're in our second year out of the pandemic, and going into next year, I'm really excited to see what the Northeast can bring in terms of racing. I think the Northeast has had a really tough round. You know, we you know, because even us down, you know, with the F Series and everything going on in Englishtown and everything, and then you guys with NHKA, you know, we've talked before. It's you know, we've had a really tough running, you know, trying to run these races, get these races going, and keep the racing going. It's really important. Obviously, it's not only good fun, but you know, it's just it becomes more than that over time. It becomes just like what you do, you know, and how you push yourself and how you keep yourself in shape, you know. And I know a lot of guys, you know, like that, you know, they grow up and they've been racing for so long, and for some reason, like, they lose that spark and I don't need to race anymore, I'm fine. But you know, hopefully they find other means of having one. But Dave Despain said one thing at the end of Wind Tunnel when he had his 13-year run on Speed TV done in 2013. He said, all these years, after all the racing, after all the craziness that goes on, you know, he remembered a time during, you know, 2001 when some guy needed tape to go run at a dirt track, and somebody threw the tape from the crowd because there was a tape shortage because there was a terrorist scare, and everyone was just throwing tape at dirt track drivers, just trying to patch it up, you know. And that's kind of the ironic life lesson, you know. No matter how crazy the world is, and no matter how, you know, no matter what goes on around us, as we can see nowadays, it's, you know, really seems like anything is right around the corner, you know, with what we've all been faced with these last few years. You know, never stop having fun, you know, even with the scare, you know. It just, the best thing you can do is drop a gear and disappear, and I think that's just what a racer's heart does, you know. You just you keep pushing, you don't let any of the negativity or, you know, the crisis around you, like, get back to you, you know. And if there's a tape shortage for some reason, you know, yeah, I'm sure you'll find me on the side of the dirt track throwing it over the fence at my best friend.
Yeah, no, it's, yeah, and you really hit it, because I mean, look, I mean, well, I think I would even add this, like, I think iRacing was the only business during the pandemic that was booming.
It really had
one
to be.
of the few, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, even getting TV coverage, like, NASCAR is back, but digitally, as Mike Joy put it. But yeah, I was even all over that, the racing on TV. Like, it's just like, iRacing on TV. This doesn't happen every day, so I'm gonna. I mean, right, I had to clear my calendar of nothing to make sure that I could watch it.
I actually used to watch that with my dad, and it was funny because I would be upstairs. I would run like the 12 o'clock Xfinity race just to do it, you know, and I'd be in like sixth or seventh split, you know, which wasn't bad, you know, but like, yeah, and it was definitely tough. But, you know, my dad would watch me do that, and then me and my dad, like, it was crazy. Like, we get excited to watch that because my dad knew. He was like, yo, like, this is going to even the field out. Like, this is going to be funny to see, like, all these guys that we usually see in real life, you know, we're doing the same thing I'm doing. So it was just like such a great experience during that time, just for me and my dad to, you know, watch all those races. I'll never forget Homestead. Freaking Clint Boyer had me on the floor, man. Oh my God, dude! I'd never seen a man drink beer like he does and have the fun that he does behind the steering wheel in sim racing, man. He is freaking hilarious, dude.
Yeah, he's definitely one of a kind personality in NASCAR. But
yeah, no, it's been a crazy last few years. You know, I'm hoping it just proves it's all about fun, man. You know, no matter what happens, and obviously, like, it is about, like, taking it seriously is insanely important because it gives everybody that sense of, winning is real, and we're all really here putting our passion out on the racetrack. But the second that you're almost like not having fun anymore, and then you can't ever forget that. You can't ever forget that even when you're having tough times, even when you got to fix all kinds of crap, and something's working that you definitely thought was supposed to be working. Once you get past that, and once Sunday night comes, you can just look back on the weekend and be like, you know what, I had fun and I learned. Even when you didn't have a good time, you learned something. And you can't ever forget that, because all those times you learn, all those times, where something happens to you that was out of your control, or you lost. Even my buddy Kyle Bryant, he races up in New York, and he came out the New York Race Complex reverse track, and just to talk about the last weekend of racing, Alec and I were up there. Alec was supporting Brenna, and then I was helping run the race and everything with Gear Up, and doing announcing. So it was really, really, we were really uncertain going into the weekend running the New York Race Complex layout in reverse, and I got to say it definitely delivered with the racing. The shifter racing was unbelievable. It was like it turned the last section to a slow section, and there was 4 lead changes on the final lap for the shifter win between a GFC. What was it? Robbie Campbell, he's from Downingtown, and then Blake Forth, who drives for the Checkered Motorsports Magic Kart team. He actually he sealed the championship this weekend, but in unbelievable fashion. During the pre-final on Saturday, he made a last lap setup pass to get a run to win. And but I will say, back to Kyle Bryant, which is what I was originally going to talk about, going into Bertrand, which is a bend, right? I don't know, you will hopefully experience New York Race Complex in the near future. Christian, you've got to, dude. Like, because I know you like fast flowing tracks, and you would freak out here. I'm telling you.
Yeah, no, I definitely got to make it up there at some point. All right, look, because I'm just connecting dots here. New York Race Complex, that was Gear Up F Series, or no, Gear Up is different than F Series.
Well, no, Gear Up is the F Series, but okay. Gear Up is the regional championship. Like, Gear Up is the series that would used to run at like Carolina Motorsports Park, Pocono. That like even like when they would go to X1, that was under Gear Up. Like, and the F Series in itself is just the state series that raced at Englishtown and New Jersey Motorsports Park.
Okay, I gotcha. But Nate, the 2 guys that were the GFC karting, Mateo, correct me if I'm wrong, that was Jason Henrique and Mike Rivera, right?
Yeah, it was Jason Henrique. He was in KZ. Mike Rivera was in Ship Dryman, so he was running a rock. And then Alex Manglass and Robbie Campbell both raced under that tent too.
Okay, because Nate, Mike Rivera always ran at F1, and then Jason
Enrique.
Yeah, he did too. And Jason came up through the junior leagues a little bit after I did. So, but we would that whole racing crew. We were always around the track with one another too. So Jason's quick dude, and so is Mike.
Dude, I am mind blown by that guy, because Alex Manglass in Gear Up the last few years has been very well known to be almost unstoppable. The only person that even would come close would be Annie Rule, who she'll be racing this weekend at Stars. She races for Magic too. She was second in the championship to him last year. She won it in 2020, and this year he was dominant, because after the first round, Magic didn't come. But I guess Jason Henrique, he just came out to run the last round this year, which was like cool to see. I didn't expect anything. He actually qualified on pole, so right off the rip. And nobody had done this layout, so it was kind of an equalizer. Like, if we ran the regular, I'm sure Alex would have had way more experience, but us running reverse made it kind of even out the field, and Jason was right off the rip, man. And I gotta tell you, man, like, I don't know what he's been doing these last few years, but that man can drive a shifter cart now, man. He really battled hard, like back and forth with Alex the first few laps, and then he was gone. It was basically it was basically just a GFC versus Maranello battle all weekend. You know, that's basically what it was. Because even Christian, Marco's son, he was running under Maranello. So yeah, he's one fast guy, man. He didn't win Saturday, but he won on Sunday. So he's a huge threat no matter what. And yeah, I'm not surprised that you guys know that. That's really funny. Mike Rivera, he's been in the sport since the beginning, almost, like not only the beginning, but he's been in the sport since the late '90s, which is a long time for this area. He was the guy that was going to start and he ran a few races of the Northeast Shifter Series, and that just became a part of the F Series eventually. He's fast as heck too, man. He won a few races overall because they combined the Masters. They call it Ironman, but they combined the Masters and the regular shifters together. But it's all classified into their own class. Mike Rivera, dude, he has so much knowledge and experience when it comes to karting, and he's actually a very interconnected guy in the sport. And it seems like, he's always trying to help people out. He's helped out some great drivers, start to get allocated into shifter racing, and he's really beginning to meld them into some great drivers, and I'm glad that he still puts in the effort and experience he has into the sport. But yeah, it's interesting, I just wanted to mention this, it's as we kind of come out of the last race of the season at Gear Up, I don't know, I feel like it's definitely the end of a chapter and the beginning of a new chapter. I can't really speak of, what that new chapter is going to be, but, just Northeast karting has been through a lot over the last 20 years, and, so many people have come and went, and, many, professional drivers have came through and, are already on their way to, through junior formula and things like that, but there's I think a new chapter that's kind of being written here, and and we've been kind of trying to be a part of it with kind of bringing new talent into the sport. And one kid I want to bring up right now is Ben Braley. Ben Braley, well, what a man! He started racing with us at Supercharged in the Winter Championship up in Massachusetts, and he has been with us ever since. He comes to basically every race. He's won at United Karting. He was second in the championship to Liam Mahan. Liam Mahan, another great driver. But yeah, Ben Braley has really been one of those drivers, man, that I've been looking at on the come up through our program that I think is going to be a big threat in the national level of racing in a few years. And mark my words, you know what I mean? The top driver in national scene right now is Ryan Norberg, and he's like in his early 20s, and Ben Braley's still young. He's still got so much racing left to do. And, Alec, I don't know, I know me and you have been fantasizing about his start at OVRP a few months ago.
Oh, yeah. A few months ago, we co-hosted a endurance race with Endurance Karting at Oakland Valley. And the entire weekend, it was just raining, downpouring. Practice on Friday, like, we could barely stay on the track. We had, like, very experienced drivers going off even. And for the race, when Ben went out to qualify for our team, he came in and weighed in a little bit under the weight requirement, so he had to start from the back. And it took him under, 12 laps to go from 21st in the rain. He's never been in the rain before, and he's never used these karts or driven at this track.
He had no
and it took him 12. Yeah, and you were driving rental karts on slick tires. Like, there is no grip. Like, you have to know how exactly to drive these karts to have any sort of success. It does not come naturally at all. And this man, Ben, he went from 21st to 6th overall in 12 laps. He was passing people like 3 wide through some of the turns in the rain, and it was just like one of the best starts that I've ever seen. And it's people like this that really get the community excited. You have like this generational talent that just comes through and just shows this completely dominating force in any race that they go to. They're always competing at the front, like no matter where they are. They could go to any track, use like pretty much any rental cart, and sometimes even competition cart, and they'll always be at the front and challenging the leaders. And Ben's one of those guys, and right now he's leading the championship again, and yeah, I mean, we'll see how it goes the rest of the season, but it's definitely not going to be easy. The championship lead, I think, changed 3 times in the past 3 races, and it's still going to be close going down to the last race at GoPro Motorplex in October.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I've raced against Ben, and he's a quick driver, and I've seen his first start, or the opening stint at that 6-hour race in OVRP, and that was just stunning stuff. I mean, it's seriously, and he was in a class of his own. It was unbelievable driving, and he's if anyone's looking out there for like a driver that has some serious skill, I mean, he has to be on the list.
More than definitely. I am really, really hyped to see how we can make of him, and just one thing I wanted to mention, we're actually having our first ever race with 2 different engine classes ever. We've had 2 different weight classes before, but we've never had 2 different performance classes. So we are proud to introduce the Club United Rotax will be a part of our championship, and we'll be actually the championship drivers that are in the running for the championship will be running that Rotax class amongst themselves, so they won't have the usual, regular, giant rental field to face. But I'm sure.
Yeah, and for anyone that doesn't know, the 2-stroke Rotax carts are the same kind of carts that you'll see at Club 100. 2 strokes are driven a lot differently to the 4 strokes, and they're the main level of competition, the main motors used in competition karting. So, the opportunity to have a 2-stroke rental kart class at this level is just huge. For anybody looking to go from rental karts into 2-stroke competition karts, like, this is what you need to do. You get practice with a rental kart with a similar motor, and it just gives you the chance to not have to break the bank while still getting a lot of practice that is much needed. These 2-stroke karts are not easy to drive. Me and Mateo have driven them only a handful of times, and it is definitely way more difficult than your average rental kart.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm still learning with rental karts myself, and it's a never-ending learning curve with racing. There's so much to learn, even in race cars, and high-performance go-karts, such as the karts with the X30 engines. There's a lot to learn at tracks and how to drive the karts. So, I mean, there's no such thing as a perfect lap, but I mean, you get to get pretty darn close if you really, throw the kitchen sink at it.
Well, yeah, and we want to kind of create a focus now, because it's really gonna this round 9. I mean, we still have round 8, because one thing my dad always used to say is like, I'd be like, Dad, you ready for this weekend? He'd be like, Mateo, I got to get through today, right? I got to get through, you know what I mean? So looking ahead to Monza, it's going to be a really, really good round. It's a very well-known layout now. We are happy to come back this season, and I know there's a lot of drivers that want redemption from the last round we had there. So, this weekend, that's going to be huge. And then going into round number 9, we have, like I said, our first 2-class race. The race in the rental karts is still going to be, really, really close. The karts are now chain drive instead of belt drive now, so they're doing much, much better. They're I got a report from Alex Smith, which is a championship driver for us, that he had to, in order to actually race in the road tax class, you actually have to go there to qualify. So if you're listening and you're interested, you must go qualify. And you have to get at least a 54.5, but apparently it's much easier now with the chain drive on the Carolyn chassis. So, yeah, that's going to be a really, really close race in the rental class, and then our road tax class has a championship at hands. And then right after United, the drivers are going to have almost a month off. We're going to still have our esports. We're going to our last 3 esports rounds, and I believe you, Christian, are in the lead of the championship. So, and our man from Kansas, he's going to be looking in, and Grant Palmer is racking up ridiculous amount of points, and if he really wants to run every race to the end, he might be able to do something absolutely insane. There is one drop week. I'm going to work the boat to see if there's 1 or 2, but it's going to be very it's going to be very close in both real life and in esports at the Indycar Challenge. The last race in real life is going to be at GoPro Motorplex on October 2nd. There's going to be some of our esports guys like Carson Barrett. He should be coming. We're looking for more talent from the South. So anybody listening, if you have any friends or if you are from the Carolina or Virginia area, come out to the Touring Kart Championship GoPro Grand Prix at GoPro Motorplex. It's a huge race. We're going to have we have the biggest field availability of 52 karts that we've ever had. It is the top level racing track in the East Coast. Drivers can be flocking from all over. RVA Karting, I'm sure some of those guys will be there. It's going to be a top weekend. We still have the Endurance Championship because, just what our program is we have our own Grand Prix Championship, and then we co-host an Endurance Championship for anything Maryland and North for endurance karting, but the Northeast Championship for endurance karting will be at the Lime Rock Karting, the Fall Karting Classic on October 15th. Our main touring kart team, which just won on home turf with Ben and Henry, who Nathan and I raced against a couple years ago. They won with Alec and Gennady from New York City Karting. Shout out to New York City Karting. Thank you guys for helping our program and coming to our races. We have a lot coming up. That endurance championship is going to come down the wire. Voodoo, just to put in perspective. So the endurance karting races, you guys actually had a toe in one of those races with Redness Racing. You also had Evan Rouskin in the cart and a few other guys at Club Motorsports. Yeah. So Evan I've heard you guys talk about it on the podcast a little before, but how was that for you guys?
It was really super fun. I mean, It was, my whole thing with that was to bring, more or less the I call it F1 Boston zombies to the track, but but I just really wanted to. Drivers like Evan Rackison, Alex Gomes, and I know Christian's skill, and I know my skill, and Hugh North.
Yeah.
And Charlie, who was that? And so I knew I was forgetting a name, but I just wanted to get those drivers into the same atmosphere as Touring Kart Championship and other drivers from endurance karting like Voodoo Racing. They're doing the whole schedule too. So that's a team that's really up there in skill and really puts you into a corner of how fast can you go. And so just to have the team that we brought over and look, everybody wants to win, but I would say going into that race, my mentality was, all right, we're in pro class. All right, let's at least podium.
Yeah. Well, and I think
I would say
the team that we brought too, we also had high expectations too, because we know that the 6 of us are super competitive and want to do the best that we can. And in any of the high performance kart or competition karts, and then the rental leagues around New England, like we're all quick in any of those. So we just definitely wanted to take some of that and put it up against some guys that were from outside New England area and see where we stacked up. And yeah, it was a great event at Club Motorsports too. So yeah, good race there.
Yeah, thanks for coming out, guys. We it was really crazy, to kind of see you guys come in, with obviously Voodoo, and our first team is very, very competitive. We just for anybody listening, just to put it in perspective, if you watch WEC or IMSA, I guess the best way you can compare it would be, like Toyota and Alpine are kind of the Voodoo and us. I'd say Voodoo is kind of like Toyota because, Voodoo is made up of the guys that, help mechanic and help a lot of the work with endurance karting, and, guys like Ken, who's a good friend of Paul from Full Tilt Racing. He's a good friend of all of us. Ken and a few of their guys, and even sometimes Chris McCoy's son, he'll be racing in that team as well. So they're just, they know those karts really well, and, they are really, really talented drivers just in general. But one thing I will say, they make sure that it's even fair competition. They make sure that when they do win, it is done, it's done properly. And, that day I was watching the times from where I was, and I just saw we were just closing that gap, and then, we ran out of laps. So, I mean, we had come so close to winning overall so many times. It's funny, I'm actually standing here in my office looking at second place in semi-pro from Touring Kart Racing, and that was because I made the mistake of bringing Alec in way too early, thinking, like, we got a nice gap, let's just get out of the way and finish. But then we just got the worst kart you could imagine. So, we wound up getting reeled in.
At Club Motors, at Camp Motorsport.
Yeah. And then we had our first team won, and then actually, unfortunately, got DQ'd after being off by like a pound. So
our first team finished first overall, but the finishing driver was 0.3 pounds under the weight minimum, and so they got their win taken away from them. Yeah, and we were really in second place, right behind them. Actually, before the kart change, we were in first, leading them. And as soon as I got into that last kart, I came out of the pits and I just saw our first team drive right by me. I instantly knew it was a bad kart, and we were kind of taken out
helpless feeling
of the race from that. We dropped from first to third, and there's not really much we could do. So we generally, when our endurance teams go out and represent us at races, we have a good showing. Touring Kart Championship hasn't finished off of the podium at the endurance karting races yet. When we went down to the 24 hours of NOLA, we were running, third to fifth before our kart broke, and we had to spend 45 minutes fixing it. But, that it really just shows what putting people in one community in, this competitive environment where they can just sit there and compete against each other and grow and, learn how to adapt to different tracks. It just shows how powerful that really is, because we go to, pretty much every race and are immediately competitive in rental karts. We can go to any track and have a pretty good showing.
Yeah, more than definitely. It's been an awesome ride in the endurance races, and winning at home at New Jersey Motorsports Park was just so awesome to see. As I was directing that race, just in the back of my mind, I was so thrilled. to see this team become what it has, and seeing our 2 and 3 teams finish on the podium respectively, and seeing our new rookie drivers such as Wyatt, get some great experience out there. He actually started for the team, so he did a great job. Alex did a great job. Ramon, Pierre came out, and he put on a showing as well. They all did, and like I said, Voodoo Racing is very hard to beat, and for us to beat them at Avenger, and Avenger, I gotta say, like, it was another round. It was just one of those races where we didn't know what to expect, kind of like what I was talking about with Gear, but it wound up producing like great racing. Everybody had somebody to battle at some point or another, so it's far from just a straightforward endurance race for a lot of people, and we played the strategy really, really well. We kind of ran a really good strategy, and we were able to, do what we had to do, and we got it done. So going into Lime Rock, I'm going to be, watching on and watching our guys do what they do best. I'll be getting back out there pretty soon. I got a lot of sim work that I'm doing over the next 5 or 6 months. I'm doing a few tests here and there with a VLR, so I'm going to be working kind of here somewhat behind the scenes. My main results and pushing is going to be in our esports challenge. With that being said, that's kind of the cherry on top for what I wanted this program to become, and it's one I want to actually formally announce. I just kind of say that for the podcast. We now have a ladder program in esports as well. We are now introducing Formula 4 on Monday nights. We just had our first test season under Apex Racing just to kind of work out kinks, see how it works, see what kind of drivers we need, and see how we have to attack the setup. And now we kind of know what we need to do. So we're going to be starting with Belle Isle. The Touring Kart Championship is going to be going to the streets of Belle Isle. We're going to Watkins Glen first. So we're kind of following the NASCAR weekend a little bit. Yeah. We're a little late to the party, but we're pulling. We got the virtual haulers pulling into Watkins Glen now.
Saving the best for last, and that's one track I'm really excited for, especially with the boot.
Christian. Yeah. And Christian, how are you feeling going into this round?
It's.
How are you feeling?
A little banged up from this past weekend of racing on my own, but I think after coming off the triple oval, how do I phrase that? Yeah, the past three races we've done our ovals, and I didn't think I was going to do anywhere good on those because oval is just not my strength at all, and I managed to walk away with a win on one of them and 2 fourths. So in terms of points, I'm doing all right. So
those are happy points there.
Yeah. So I guess it just makes my life a little bit easier going into the last couple where I only just gotta kind of manage. If I want to take the LM Prost approach, I can play the points game, or I can just do what I've done the past 3 races where I just go out and drive my ass off and see where I finish.
Yeah, just do this in 1988, I think it was. He's leading by a minute, and it just bins it, and then here comes Nathan for the lead.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you something. One cool part of our championship is, the esports challenge is meant to be a kind of like it is a race. It's a full-blown racing series, but it's almost kind of like an all-star challenge too, because it takes drivers from disciplines and different karting series all over the East Coast. That kind of, or even just professional racing drive anywhere. Like even we had Blake Walkley and Truck Series rookie come out at Pocono, and I had a little tussle with him, and he apologized to me. So thank you, Blake. You're a good dude. But so what is it like racing Indy Cassie? Indy Cassie is a driver. He races a lot of United Karting. He does a lot of stuff at Summit Point. He's a really, really fast guy. It seems like you two have really gotten to know each other somewhat well. So just tell me, what is it like been having some of those finishes you've had with that driver?
It's been good racing. It's been pretty comparable to some of the racing that I close and hard, but fair racing that I've had in any of the karting that I've been involved with around up here in New England. and it's been good to just kind of replicate that in here in the esports league, and then also with TKC. So I mean, clearly, like, that's the kind of level of racing you're getting with these guys around here. So, and that's good. That's what you want to see. So.
Well, of course, and then like I said, like you're I know you were very quick at iRacing, because even so, like, I ran with you at Plumall a couple years ago, and I was the first team we were together, and then I had a very my night stint was basically just kind of trying to climb our way back up from a Ferrari, a very faithful Ferrari that came at us 11 hours into the race.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to bring up trauma, guys. I'm not trying to do that.
It builds character. It builds character.
Does build character. You're right. Because next one we tackle, whatever we do, like it's gonna. There's so much at stake, and we have so much energy now, and we've learned. But I'll never forget that day. That was so awesome, even because I remember that's how I got to know you, and then even just right off the rip, I gotta say, Christian, you were very, very quick on the sim. Mm-hmm. You run up there with some of the top times in the country, which is really, really, really wild. It seems like you're very, like you said, like you're very adaptive yourself. So, kind of seeing the way you've tackled the Indycar championship since Road America has been really impressive. So I wish you the best of luck. It won't be as easy as Gateway next time when you have to pass me, because I'm going to do the right thing next time.
Well, you better save your push to passes until the end of the race, like I do.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I also got to knock on my tires at the beginning of the stint.
Yeah. No, it'll be good.
Yeah, but yeah, so it's been awesome. Just to quickly touch, speaking of Watkins Glen, Watkins Glen just got visited by NASCAR just recently, and I just wanted to mention, just because it's kind of interesting. I don't know, like, it's just kind of interesting to see how Chase Elliott took what happened. He just was kind of like, yeah, whatever. Time for Daytona, baby. Like, time for Bristol and Daytona, So I mean,
what did he? I guess elaborate for me on that one, because I'm missing something, because everyone's so hyped up about how controversial the restart was or anything like that. From like a pure racing perspective, I thought it was clean and fair. Well, I mean, not totally clean, because there was some door banging, but I mean, like I thought it was pretty fair in terms of NASCAR standards.
Well, so Nathan, can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, I mean, I'm okay with getting my elbows out. So, I mean, I don't know. For me, I'm kind of used to like a NASCAR idea. I don't want to say, like, I say NASCAR, but there's stages and wrecks all the time.
Because I mean, I don't know. Hear me out on this. Like,
go ahead. Yeah.
The restart before that, Chase started on the outside and successfully executed it. So my thought process there of seeing it, of why he chose it, was, well, it worked once, so it'll work again, and he knows what he's doing, and he's more confident going into it that time. I don't know if he missed a shift, or if he just got off the line slower than the time before, but I mean, yeah, that's the risk you take when you start on the outside.
Well, and I'll even furthermore on that. Like, Christian knows my style of racing. Like, he knows if I'm on the inside of that, there is a likely chance that I may just hit my elbow towards his elbow. Like, that's just what it is. It's down to the wire. One person can win. It kind of gets to the point where it's like, all right, well, I want to win. You kind of look at each other like, well, who's going to win? Like, that's how I would tackle it. And, look, I want to do everything I can to win. I do. I'm not going to blatantly wreck you to win. I'm not going to just throw you under the bus just to win. I really, 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 really want to win, though. Like, so it's like, wag the $5 bill in front of me, and I'll do everything that I can to get to it. But I thought it was relatively clean, just because there really isn't any track limits in NASCAR. If there was a track limit thing, then you can make the argument that it's complete BS. Because the one race I can think of that really pissed me off, if you're going to make that kind of overtake, is when John Hunter Nemechek went complete, like, I'll even say it, Xbox remote or PS4 remote died, and this was at Mosport, or I guess Canadian Tire Raceway or whatever. He was next to Cole Custer in the Truck Series, and they went in the grass, and they both finished in the grass because John Hunter Nemechek just hung a hard left and just stayed left until he came across the finish line to win. I think that's a BS finish, just because you're completely off course, and you can clearly see that he's like hard left in him to make sure that he can at least finish the race ahead. I don't know. I just feel it's a little different because, I mean, in basically what NASCAR's layout of Watkins Glen is, not iRacing's, it's a part of the track almost. They're not going to penalize you for being off track like that.
Well,
that's still the racetrack.
Yeah, well, especially with big, heavy stock cars, and it's just something that happens when, like you got 20 or 30, 40 cars are going into turn one. And honestly, like, if you look at that restart, Kyle Larson just locked up a little, and then Chase Elliott kind of got knocked off. What I was mentioning, like Chase Elliott really didn't care. You know what I mean? Like, when they interviewed him, he did not seem to care all that much. Because, I mean, look at the way the point structure is. I'm sure that if this happened in, like, 2003, like, he would have been a lot more mad with the stage of the championship Watkins Glen was then. But now, like you can, and this is just something that I think points out what the NASCAR community really, like, kind of is. It's like, you look at the restart, Elliott probably missed the shift, and, like, Kyle Larson locked up, and he got knocked back to third, and Logano got in there, and then Allmendinger, who I was rooting for and who I'm always pulling for at these road course races because he's kind of like the underdog, and he's the road ringer. I'm always pushing for him to beat Larson.
He's part-time in the Cup Series right now in college racing. So, I mean, it's a clear underdog favorite.
Yeah, and okay, and then look what happens, right? So Chase Elliott gets interviewed after the race, and he also got interviewed by Bob Pockrass, and just kind of asked him, like, how did you feel? Did you feel like that, and he was just like, oh, whatever, I guess we're just going to go into Bristol, like it. He literally, like, the vibe he gave from me, like, he's like, he did not care. And then Christian, like, what is it about, like, the NASCAR community that, like, seems to just, like, blow up, when these things happen? It's not like Chase Elliott is somebody who's missing a championship or wins or anything like that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like, it's just like a normal thing in the NASCAR community, just, like, blow up about like things like this.
You're asking the wrong person. I just watch. My history of NASCAR is I tune into the first 5 laps because there's usually going to be a wreck there, and then I always tune into the last 5 laps because there's usually always a wreck there, and that's really the only excitement that I ever really gets drummed up there. Recently, this past season, I've been keeping in touch with it. I fully don't understand it, but I'm on the bandwagon of get rid of stage racing and bring back strategy into it. And I think this whole wins thing and playoffs thing, I'm kind of against, just because I don't.
Just say it's BS. Because I will say it's BS.
I don't get any other than those shootout events where it's like, okay, like, it's one event, you have to win this race to move on because, like, that's the only kind of opportunity that we can afford to give you. Like, I understand that kind of thing if you're just trying to, like, go to the next step, but, like, if you're going into these big championships, like, there's a season, and that's where a driver I would think is crowned champion. I don't know how many other series that are out there that have playoffs in racing. I've never viewed it like that.
So this is basically what happened. This is all I'm going to say. NASCAR put itself in a position of sports marketing on television of, baseball, NBA, NFL, whatever. And in 2013 and 2012, they were beginning to notice, their ratings fall off simply for the quality of the racing that was being behold, and also just the simple matter of the fact, that it's all about money at the end of the day, and more viewership and more people in the sport obviously means more money. So NASCAR looked at even creating the chase that they created in 2014, as a way that one would make drivers go for wins and be less conservative, which to them creates ratings other than whatever racing is. And then two, the chase is something that I guess wasn't the worst idea. Like the chase did introduce that playoff idea into racing, and that immediately, with the hardcore, racing, pioneers, I guess you can say, they're kind of like, nah, like that's you got to race through the full season, But in a way, like whatever, there's 43 drivers, back then in NASCAR, one chase, whatever. It was just a part of the season where the top 10 or top 12 would just get reset, and then there you go. And then Jimmy Johnson just so happened to be really good at it. So that's all that was.
Yeah.
But if you fast forward to what this all is, it has really become like, maybe at first, like it did spice things up a little and make things like pretty wild, but also at the same time, like I think it has gone way beyond and way past what its original purpose was, and I think it's time to go back to the basics, because the racing is great, but it's getting ridiculous because people are winning, like all these drivers are winning, and then if like another driver wins at Daytona, this is going to be freaking stupid because we're going to have another 2013 situation now.
Not technically, no, because if you have a new winner at this race, then you have 16 winners right then and there.
Well, hold on. So this is the point of conversation I was waiting for. So Ryan Blaney, he's like,
yes.
If it's like regular season points, he's he's second or third total with points. And so let's just say Brad Keselowski, my homeboy Brad Keselowski.
You love him, don't you?
Listen. Him and Paul Wolf were a dynamic duo in 2012.
Uh-huh.
I was sold. So let's just say, look, Bubba Wallace, Corey LaJoie, Ricky Stenhouse, someone that does not have a win, and what ends up happening is that's the guy who gets it. Ryan Blaney does not get a chance at the championship, despite having all these points racked up to be second or third in the regular season. I guess we'll just put it that way.
And if that happens, that would not only show how ridiculous this format is, one, and two, like I said, it's run its time. Like, it's not too late, the point where it's no longer like, oh, word, it's mad exciting now because in the last race, like, any fourth driver can win. It's lost its spark. Like, it never even had a spark, and honestly, NASCAR is, what's kind of crazy? NASCAR is lucky that Kyle Larson's pit crew was really good, because if Kyle Larson didn't win that championship last year, that would be complete bullcrap, man. That would have been such a joke. After his performance last year and him not winning the championship, that would have been like, this is officially a joke. So in a way, they're lucky he finished good at Phoenix. Like, maybe at first, when we almost had Ryan Newman almost troll NASCAR and win the championship with no wins.
Oh, 2014. I know. I was waiting for Ryan Newman to give like the double bird to NASCAR if like Harvick just somehow didn't win and he finishes like second and just ahead of everybody. Oh my God, I was waiting on that. I was like, oh, what? Well, the NASCAR, you made your bed. And honestly, at this point, you just got to sleep in it. And look, they got rid of the worst person. He did it to himself, Brian France, with the DUI. But at that point, that's the guy you got to get rid of, because he's creating all this bullcrap of a terrible playoff system that NASCAR is now. NASCAR is digging their own grave. They've ruined strategy. Number one, they've ruined that idea of playoffs, and a championship is almost irrelevant.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. It's run its course. And from here on out, they really got to look at their series and be like, damn, like, we have all these new fans now, but are these new fans, like, even for the new fans, I think this is just too much. Like,
I think
I bet
this
you the
is
new fans.
this is probably just a better question of asking, like, how do you grow motorsports, right? Because everyone obviously that's involved in
Right.
motorsports wants to see it, up on national TV, be able to watch races every weekend. You want to see it become bigger and more involved because that gets more cash in, and then maybe the racing will get cheaper or whatnot. But who knows? But yeah, it's the question of which direction do you go, and then does it start to ruin the sport and take away what it was, because you don't want to lose that feeling either of what racing is and what it's meant to be. And yeah, I mean, I think I think motorsports, no one wants to artificially create a show, because that's not what racing has been about. It's always been about just going out there and doing the best that you can with what you have. And the one thing that doesn't lie is the stopwatch.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, because I mean, we're all racing against the clock, aren't we? So,
And then, just what I'm saying, it's like, you can't just win a racing championship by I won one race during the regular season, and I can just do whatever for the rest of the season just to win one race in the playoffs, or just win at the right time in the playoffs, and boom, like.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like it's definitely a format that has run its course. Even what I was going to say, for the new fans, it's not like, it's like, I can only imagine a new fan. A new fan probably doesn't even understand what just happened when somebody crosses the line with a green and white checkered flag. They're probably like, okay, what is there a caution? Okay, there's a caution now. It's not like, oh, the win, like it's like, that's where it's not even doing its purpose anymore. And my message to NASCAR, obviously, not listening to this, but my message to NASCAR is grow up, back to the basics. This is racing. You're going to have good races. Focus on your package. Make your package continue to race good. Don't overdo it. Make sure they're, Cup is now literally officially slower than Xfinity. It doesn't make any sense. I know you're trying to make better racing because Cup is your TV viewership, but just cut the crap. Throw them up a horsepower. Work on aerodynamics. Do what you got to do. You're doing a good job in that department, but your TV beat crap and your wannabe, reality TV show crap is not working. And it's that, I'm glad there are a lot of people watching it, but if the championship stays in the format it's going to stay at, they're going to lose. In 2-3 years, NASCAR will be just as irrelevant as it was 10 years ago. So let's turn the tables. That's all I'll say.
All right. Well, you heard it here, folks. Hot takes by Matteo Giuliano.
The very hot take. Like NASCAR, it's you are past. You are beyond the system not working. And that's the thing. As a and I'm saying this as a race director and a series owner, I have to work with literally what I had available to me to create what I have. And if I had some gimmicky crap, I would probably not be able to survive. And I won't survive. I won't. Like, my series will be, go into the grave of a lot of series, and I don't. And everybody's faced with that, and it's hard. It's hard to keep people interested, especially with driver retention, blah, blah, blah. But with something as prestigious as NASCAR, if they head in the direction of turning it into, like Wreckfest, or turning it into some kind of monster truck racing, nah, I don't think they're fully doing that, but I don't know. We'll see how Daytona goes, and I just hope that I just want the next generation to see racing for what it is and not be like watching like toy cars like crashing like it's just Hot Wheels. That's just what I think. So I know I have hot takes. I have a lot of hot takes about everything, but that's just who I am. I'm just an individual. I just want everyone to get out on track, and I just want to see some homies running through the Truck Series, run through Xfinity Series, and start giving Larson a run for his money. That's all I want. So.
Yeah, dude. All right. Well, my recording thing says 2 hours, so I think
This has been an endurance podcast.
Yeah, this definitely is. I think just like us liking endurance races, we definitely like endurance podcasts. I don't know how many people have stuck it out to the end of this thing right now, but I think it's probably a fair time to cut this up.
Yeah.
If you hung out with us for all this time, you're cool. If you look, we're just talking. We're just talking about the cool stuff. If you want to really quit the talking, we're done talking. Kind of just talking out on track. We have NRL Cup Racing 18 plus starting on Tuesday night next week. We got esports coming up in a couple days at Watkins Glen. The fun's out on track. We're live on No Pro Virtual Motorsports every Thursday. We're coming to a track near you very soon. The excuses are no longer. If you want to freaking race, you can race. No more excuses. That's it.
All right. Yeah, so I guess we didn't really get to a lot of racing news this week, and we did basically a 2-hour commercial for TKC, but you know what? It was awesome.
Oh, my God.
Oh,
yeah.
no.
So, no, it was Mateo and Alec. It was great talking to you guys. Definitely we'll have to catch up with you guys in real life at some point. Alec, I know I met up with you in Tamworth, New Hampshire, but Mateo, we definitely got to meet at some point. So.
Oh, we will. Do not worry.
Yeah. Alrighty, guys.
Yeah. Are you guys gonna come down to Lime Rock?
I gotta make it through September 1st.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So we'll see. But yeah.
Signing off.
Alrighty, guys. This has been episode 16 of the Red Menace podcast. Thank you guys for listening. And thank you, Mateo and Alec, for joining us. It was great having you on the show. And anyone out there who's listening, definitely look up these guys. Touring Kart Championship. Definitely something that's up and coming, and definitely looking forward to seeing how they progress in the future. And it's been a pleasure having you guys. Take care.
All right. Take care.
All right. You too. Good night.
Thank you guys for listening to the Red Mist Podcast, hosted by Christian Abbott, Sean Abbott, and Nathan Lavin. It's produced by Christian Abbott, and music is by Alex Wart and Harrison Tate.